Ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow you have a vocab quiz 1 through 10. I will tell you right now, learning is a huge unit. It is what I'm teaching you today is classical conditioning. It is 100% absolutely going to be on your AP exam. There's probably going to be an FRQ on it, and there's definitely going to be multiple questions on your multiple choice about it. It is a huge unit. Learning is 10% of your AP exam. So it is a big unit. The next biggest unit is 6%, and that's your biology. So learning is a huge unit, which is why I wait till we're definitely in the pattern. We figured out a routine. We are ready to go because it is such a big deal. So please make sure you are listening. I have a video clip we're going to do. I got bells. So it's already going to be a day of amazing instruction, and that is what we're going to have. So we're going to fill out a ton of your study guide today, so join me on your study guide. So tomorrow, vocab quiz 1 through 10, make sure you're ready to go. Okay, so learning, it's not on your study guide. You can chill for a second. We're going to start filling it in here in a moment. Learning is any relatively permanent change of behavior brought on by experience or practice. Which one do you learn better by, experience or practice?
Practice.
Experience. You learn lessons better by experience, correct? Think about it. If you've experienced something you've gone through, that's a good question. Experience is like you've gone through something, and if you get embarrassed by something, how quick do you learn? You learn very quickly, because no one in this classroom wants to be embarrassed. And people who do get embarrassed all the time typically take it and make it as a tool in order to gain them friendship, which we will get to another situation. Practice is when you repeat a skill over and over again in your head, like your vocab. You know how you memorize it 3 seconds before the test is, and you do it over and over in your head? Yes? Okay, that's practice. So which one do you learn better by, experience or practice? Experience for sure. Okay, so now when you do learn something, you physically change your mind. Yeah, that's right, Mateo. That's exactly where you sat all year. That's the normal perspective I have of Mateo. Perfect. When you learn something, your brain actually physically changes, which is pretty cool.
Does it feel like a new brain?
Huh?
Like, how does it physically change?
The neural pathways, boss. Okay, Ivan Pavlov is at the top of your study guide. Let's go. Ivan Pavlov. Under his name in your box, I would write classical conditioning. You need to know that he is classical conditioning. There's 7 names you will learn this week, and you need to know what type of learning style they are. Ivan Pavlov is absolutely classical conditioning. Make sure you know that. He's going to do a study on dogs, and you're going to see some amazing acting here in a minute, actually about 7 minutes, where we cover all the things he talks about. So Ivan Pavlov is the guy who comes up with classical conditioning. He's going to train dogs to respond to food. So you should have the entire definition down, and in your application I would just write classical conditioning. Because, yep, train dogs to respond. Okay, so your next thing is, what is classical conditioning? Classical conditioning is learning to make a reflex response to a stimulus other than the original natural stimulus that normally produces the reflex. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to simplify this for you, but you need to have it down. And so classical conditioning, you experience it every single day. Now, who can tell me what a reflex is? I've taught you a reflex. What is a reflex, Caroline? Absolutely. And it's done without what? Without thinking. It's done without thinking. You know, we talked about the reflex arc with your knee and all that stuff. Classical conditioning is done without thinking. What is something in your life that when you hear something or see something, you immediately respond to? Everyone's hand should be up because it happens to every single one of us. Okay, Samuel?
School bell.
School bell. If the bell rang right now, and you know we're just starting the fun of AP Psych, so the class can be over. But if the bell rings right now, all of you are going to lurch to start picking up your stuff. Would you agree? And then you're going to be like, whoa, it's too early. And then maybe you figure out, but some of you would just keep packing because you're kind of oblivious to this. Okay? So, a reflex, we respond all the time. So you guys are already classically conditioned. You're classically conditioned to respond to the bell. Every time you hear the bell, it makes you physically want to get up. How much do you hate when a teacher holds you after the bell? Yeah, it makes you so angry because you're like, it's time to go, it's time to go. No, people, it's kind of arbitrary. The bell rings, then like, I get it, there's parties and stuff like that. I don't hold you, so don't glare at me like that, Nathan. But, oh, I gotta sneeze.
Wait, what about like your name?
Bless you.
Is that a
Bless you a second time.
What do you mean your name? Your
like
name
if
is
someone
just
yells your name?
You instantly turn your head.
Yeah, but that, like, it's not like your alarm, that's no, because that's like supposed to terrify you. Fire alarm, sure. Fire alarm has a specific response because there's a difference between the bell and then a fire alarm. You obviously should have a different response. But
Does it have to be like a sound?
no, it can be lights flashing. Okay, lights flashing can trigger a response as well, and stuff like that. Okay, what?
Fight or flight wouldn't count because that's like natural.
No, that's a natural thing. Okay, here we go. So, unconditioned stimulus, also known as a UCS. An unconditioned stimulus is a naturally occurring stimulus that leads to an involuntary response. Ladies and gentlemen, if I had a hot, fresh Eddie and Sam's pepperoni pizza that is just wafting, it's pepperoni, cheesy, fresh dough aromas in your direction. Just breathe it in. Okay? How would you respond?
I'd ask for a snack.
Wouldn't she be like, oh my god, pizza, 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 pizza? That's exactly what would happen to me. Okay? Unconditioned stimulus. Did I have to teach you? Did Samantha Bennett teach you to want pizza? Did someone say, little child, when you're a wee little lass, when you see pizza, you just want pizza? Did someone have to teach you that? It's not a one-on-one conversation. When you saw your first pizza, did you have to be taught to want pizza, or did you just naturally say, that's for me? What'd you say? Yeah, because it's delicious. Okay, no one had to teach you. What about ice cream? Anyone here an ice cream person? I'm not really an ice cream person. I'll eat it, believe me, but not really my thing. Did someone have to teach you to eat ice cream, or are you just like, I love it? What's your favorite kind?
Same, that's mine too.
Mint chocolate chip.
Always crazy.
Moving forward. An unconditioned stimulus. Now, and for your unconditioned stimulus, I want you to write natural as a natural response. And in the case of Pavlov, it's going to be food. So in your application, I want you to write natural, and I want you to write food. Now, with a dog, anyone here, raise your hand if you have a dog. Okay? Does your dog salivate when you give it food? Did you teach it to do that, Bernstein? What kind of dog do you have so we can all visualize your dog?
He's like a really small Maltese.
He's a Maltese. Oh. Okay, so he's a cute little Maltese. Furry, aren't they?
Yeah,
Super furry, super cute. Okay, did you train your dog to drool over food?
definitely not.
No, because he would want that. Toby, when we give him peanut butter, because we give him peanut butter so he has a pretty coat, because like if he doesn't, he kind of looks like scraggly. So we give him like that peanut butter that has the oil on the top that you got to work in, because it makes his coat really pretty. And when we're mixing up the peanut butter, he literally stands there and makes a huge drool powder. Do you think I taught him to do that? Do you think I taught him to do something like drooling, so then I had to go clean it up? No, that's stupid. Unconditioned stimulus means he does it because he naturally responds. That's what an unconditioned response is. So, did I have to teach Toby Bennett to love peanut butter, ladies and gentlemen? No. Did I teach Toby Bennett to drool when he sees peanut butter? No, because it's disgusting, because then it's on my floor and then I have to clean it up and that's like an extra step. So, an unconditioned response, which is your next box, by the way, is an involuntary response to a naturally occurring or unconditioned stimulus. So going back to the pizza, okay? If I had a pizza in the front of the room and it was wafting in your direction, or hot, fresh chocolate chip cookies, you know the ones that when you break, the chocolate is still connecting because it's nice and warm and gooey? I'm so sorry, my darling. I don't have any food because I ate it all.
Exactly.
Okay? So, if I did that and you're like, oh my god, I'm so hungry for chocolate chip cookies all of a sudden, oh, that's so nice. Okay, oh, one chip, that's going to really hold her over. Nice thought, but I don't think it's going to hold her over. when we're talking about these types of things, unconditioned response is how you respond to it. If I had a plate of warm chocolate chip cookies up front and you just smell that wafy goodness coming at you, you're going to start kind of drooling inside and be like, cookies. Anyone here cookies, people? Yes.
Definitely.
I'm a huge, you're a food person? Is that what you said? Hell yeah, Katie, I feel that. Okay, conditioned stimulus. And this is when stuff starts getting a little bit trickier. We're all clear. For your unconditioned response, you're going to write natural and saliva. Because in the case of the dogs start drooling. I never taught my dog to drool over peanut butter. He just does it. And honestly, I find it close. But it's pretty cute, so we'll forgive him. Your dog doesn't eat human food? He just doesn't like it, or you just never do it to him? Even like the good stuff, like chicken. Aiden, get down when you need them. What? You've already got it? You got down the whole definition. So 99% of your peers are still writing, but you have streamlined it fast enough that you have done it faster than everyone else in the class. Then write the whole thing. Thank you, Aiden. So, a conditioned stimulus is a stimulus that becomes able to produce a learned reflex by being paired with an original unconditioned stimulus. Let me simplify it for you. We're going to introduce something and teach it to do and respond to it. In this case, a bell. By the way, I have 3 different kinds of bells. And all of them will be used today and tomorrow and the day after. It's my favorite thing about Learning Week. Blaster hates it. I think we can get that, right? Okay, so a conditioned stimulus is based on a neutral stimulus, which is the box above. A neutral stimulus, which you're going to write down right now, is something that doesn't trigger a response pre-conditioning. A neutral stimulus is something that doesn't trigger a response pre-conditioning. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I don't have bells at my house.
Oh my.
Okay? I don't have bells in my house. So if I went home and brought a bell and rang this to Toby, what is Toby going to do? Yeah, he's going to look at me funny, like, what the hell are you doing?
It doesn't need water.
Okay? Yeah, he's just going to look at me and be like, what the hell are you up to, wild woman?
What neurostimulus doesn't need what?
Trigger a response. Okay, so if I go home and ring a bell to Toby or bring a kazoo home. I don't own a kazoo. I don't think normal people own a kazoo. Do any of you own a kazoo? Nathan's like, yeah, I do. Why do you own a
I
kazoo?
have 2 harmonicas too.
Okay, harmonicas I get, but like a kazoo, is there really a talent to that?
You can make a kazoo out of a straw. My friend.
Thank you, Catherine. Why the hell do you know that? Catherine, I can't. Okay, so if I go home today and have a kazoo or harmonica and play it to Toby, what's he going to do? Nothing. He's going to do nothing because he's like, what the hell is wrong with you, woman? That's a neutral stimulus, okay? For your application, it triggers no response but confusion, okay? A neutral stimulus is when something's brought in and you're like, what the hell is that, right? Potter, is that your question?
No, is it neutral or neural?
Neutral. It should be neutral. Okay. So, when we have a conditioned stimulus, okay, then we're going to get a conditioned response. So your conditioned stimulus is the bell, okay? During training should be your application, trained to respond to the bell. A conditioned response is when a learned reflex responds to a conditioned stimulus. So I'm going to train Toby to respond to my bell. Now, when I first showed him the bell, did he care? No, but you bet your bottom dollar when I'm done training him, will he care about the bell? Yes. I've conditioned my cats. I have 2 cats. Their names are Duncan and Donut. Okay? They are terrible to sleep with. They are awful. They are just nightmares. They just crawl all over you in the middle of the night, and they just like knead into you, and it's just miserable. So we cannot sleep with them in the room. So we have a song. We sing the Treat Time song. And it says, it's treat time, it's treat time, it's treat time for the babies, it's treat time for the babies. And then the kitties come running out of the bedroom to the kitchen, which is where we are, and we give them a little treat. And then we go to bed, and we're kitty free. Okay? So, when I first sang the song of treat time to the kitties, do you think they gave a shit? No. That song, the first time I sang it, is a what? The first time I sang it, who can raise your hand and tell me what vocab term? The first time I sang it was what, Grace? A neutral stimulus. However, after I've conditioned them, and I train them and train them, it's treat time, it's treat time, it's treat time for the babies, it's treat time for the babies. It becomes the conditioned stimulus. And then when I sing, it's treat time, it's treat time, it's treat time for the babies, it's treat time for the babies, what is my conditioned response? The running is the response. Okay? So, when we're talking about these things, your life is full of classical conditioning, whether you know it or not. I classically conditioned my husband. Perfected it. If you notice, I usually have fresh cut flowers on my desk. I don't have them this week because my husband was in Virginia and I wasn't buying myself flowers, okay? However, I've conditioned my husband. The first time, when I first started teaching, I was like, oh man, I would love to have fresh flowers in my classroom. And he was like, yeah, I bet that would be nice. So I said flowers would be nice, and it was a neutral stimulus, and he was like, yeah, I bet it would be nice. And then I was like, you know what, I'm going to make this work for me. So what would happen, every time we're heading into the store, I would compliment my husband. Then while we're walking around the flower section, I would compliment him more. And then I'd be like, oh man, these flowers are really pretty. After a couple compliments, my man would be like, why don't we get flowers today? And I was like, oh my God, then we put them in the cart and then I would give them a couple more compliments. Well, now, ladies and gentlemen, conditioning complete. We now walk into the flower section, and what does my man immediately say without any compliments?
Let's get some flowers.
Let's get some flowers. And we walk in, and I'm like, oh wow, thanks, babe. Put them in my cart. No compliments necessary. It's just now tradition.
Just no bear.
So every week, except for this week, because my husband was in Virginia and I wasn't buying myself flowers, so like $15 a week. I'm a teacher, I don't have that money. You will see on Monday there will be flowers on my desk. Thank you, McCray. He'll walk in and he'll have a genius idea all by himself. It's Sunday. Babe needs flowers. Babe does need flowers. And I will pick out, and sometimes he picks them out, sometimes I pick them out, and they'll be in my cart, and he'll pay $15, $20.
You guys don't share money.
No, we don't. We give our money separate.
That's a smart idea.
Thank you, Aiden. Okay, so that is how I've conditioned my husband. My husband sees flowers, and what is his immediate thoughts? Buy flowers for Bay. That's exactly it. Happy marriage. Okay, so conditioned response is how we respond to it. So I have a video I want you to watch. It is amazing acting. So Oscar worthy for sure. Or absolutely terrible. Who could tell?
That's good. It's Wolf of Wall Street.
Clearly I was being facetious. I know, All right. Oh, it's not coming through.
Pavlov's aim was to saliva to flow.
Miss quality.
He
Did salivary ducts to the outside of his dog's cheek so that he could collect and measure the spittle. Perhaps, he thought, the production of saliva might be the result of a fixed nervous reflex, like a knee jerk.
5 минут 42 секунды.
After taking many measurements of spittle, he confirmed that the dogs drooled automatically when their tongues touched food. He called the response the salivation reflex.
4,5. Хорошая собачка. Я предлагаю поменяться.
But his work started to run into trouble. As his dogs became familiar with the experimental routine, they started to fill their cheek tubes Before Pavlov had a chance to stimulate their tongues, the dogs were learning to anticipate food. Pavlov tried a new technique. He erected screens so that the dogs couldn't see what was going on. Before passing meat through the hatch, he introduced a stimulus that was totally unrelated to feeding. A ticking metronome. At first, the dog dripped saliva into its cheek tube only when the food appeared. But after a number of trials, the dog began to connect the ticking with the arrival of meat. Soon the sound alone made the dog drool. Eventually, the dog salivated as much to the ticking itself as it did originally to the presentation of food.
Полная! Идите сюда. Что я говорил?
He called this new response the conditioned reflex.
Собака.
Whatever the stimulus, his dogs could soon be conditioned to produce saliva. Pavlov believed that he had discovered how animals learned, even in the wild.
Okay, so Pavlov's experiment, which believe me, ladies and gentlemen, it will absolutely be on your AP exam. It will be there probably in an essay at some point, and it will definitely be on the multiple choice. So, what happens is, did anyone teach the dogs to like food? Okay, Toby loves food. Did I teach him to like it? No, that's an unconditioned stimulus. And when a dog likes food, what does he do? Salivate. Did anyone teach the dog to salivate? No. However, after we pair, every time we ring the bell, we give the dog food. Ring the bell, give the dog food. Ring the bell, give the dog food. Ring the bell, give the dog food. Every time we do that, we're conditioning the dog. So eventually, the conditioned stimulus is the bell. So every time he hears the bell, what's his conditioned response? To salivate. So we're teaching a dog to salivate to a bell when no food is present. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you have animals, you probably classically condition your dog. Okay? I have a purse that I wear. It's like a great purse that I wear to the dog park. It has Toby's rubber ball, his little racket ball he loves and loses his mind over. Okay, it's in there. Anytime I take it off the hook, Toby Bennett is straight by the door, sitting there, ready to go to the park. Okay, so when he sees that, he is classically conditioned to anytime he sees me put my purse on, what is his response? Go straight to the door and wait. Okay, if you wear a certain jacket pretty much every time you go on a walk or something like that, that's classically conditioned. Okay, every single night I blow out all the candles and I start putting the couch back to where it's supposed to be. Toby knows it's night time, so he goes and gets water because it's so annoying because he does it right before bed. And then we go to bed after that. Okay, so that's classical conditioning. Any questions on classical conditioning? We understand UCS, UCR, CR, CS? Claire?
What happens to your couch every day?
Well, because I have like throw pillows on top and I have like blankets and stuff. It's like a comfy couch, girl, okay? And I've got usually books. AP World takes over my life, and I have like books strewn all over my living room, so I have to put them in a pile. Or my husband gets fussy. Ugh. Alright, so now we're going to make it more confusing. How exciting. Okay, so we have UCR, UCSs, CS, CRs. Okay, now we're going to talk about... And tomorrow I'm going to show you an office clip to test your knowledge. To see if you actually understand that. It's part of after your bell work tomorrow. So, stimulus generalization is the next box on your study guide, by the way. Stimulus generalization is the tendency to respond to a stimulus that's only similar to the original conditioned stimulus with the conditioned response. So I'll let you write that down, and then I'll explain it to you. got all the snacks today.
Yeah, I didn't have a good day at lunch. I didn't eat a lot. So I just saved it.
You're more than 1 day. As long as you throw away your trash.
It's crazy.
You just can't have a normal conversation. You always have to start on something quotable.
Call for reason.
You're not involved.
It doesn't feel very good. But every time you say something, you say you're not wrong.
You get more than anyone.
I know, that's why I was telling you it doesn't feel very
It's fine. There's supposed to be a lesson to be had here. Okay, so let me use my bells because they're here, you know. Okay, so if I taught my dog to drool using this bell, okay, so I ring the bell, treat. Oh, are we enjoying Learning Week? I'm so glad. Katie's like dying with the bells. Perfect. Just wait until I get going with this one. And if you think this is bad, just wait for operant conditioning, girl. Just wait for it. I love props. Okay, so I taught the dog to respond to this bell. If he responds to this bell, stimulus generalization. Are these the same pitches? Are these the same bells? No. But if he responds to this bell, stimulus generalization. Or if I use this bell, which is a different pitch, a different frequency, that's stimulus generalization. So I taught him using a bell, but if he responds to any type of bell, that is stimulus generalization. Okay? So that's what I would write down in your application. I taught him with a bell, so he would respond to any type of bell. So if I had jingle bells, imagine how happy I would be if I had little jingle bells. Okay? He would respond to that as well. That's called stimulus generalization. Now, if I rang these other bells, so I would have stimulus discrimination. So if Toby didn't respond to anything except the original bell, it's then called stimulus discrimination. Okay? It's the tendency to stop making a generalized response to a stimulus that is similar to the original conditioned stimulus. Okay? So it is the opposite of stimulus generalization. So if I taught Toby to respond to this bell, he starts drooling at this one. If I ring this one, what does he do? Nothing. He does nothing to this bell. If I ring this one, what does he do? If it's stimulus discrimination, if I ring this bell, what does he do? Nothing. Okay? The dog only salivates to the original stimulus. Is what I write down in your application box. The dog only responds to the original stimulus. That's stimulus discrimination. Okay? Some animals will do stimulus generalization. Some humans too. Okay? So imagine if the bell rang right now. Okay? You would all flinch and start packing up your stuff to a degree, and then you'd realize, oh, it's too early, correct? And then maybe you would slow down. Some of you wouldn't. You just pack up your stuff and be like, I'm out. Okay? Mostly. Exactly. I don't know. I haven't seen the bell ring incorrectly in this class. So, with that being said, okay, stimulus discrimination is if there was a new tone of a bell, because there's multiple tones. Did you know that? The school chooses the bell we have. There's like 5 or 6 different options. And Mr. Boza, a couple years ago, I don't know if he still cares. Apparently, the noise in New Building is awful. Is it bad? They all hate it over there. Because in here, it doesn't sound that bad. But over there, it's like really jarring. Would you agree or disagree? It's like really like piercing, isn't it? Anyway, so Mr. Boza for a long time was trying to get the whole school to change its bell tone because it's so awful in the new building. Which I don't know if it was successful or not because I don't remember, nor do I kind of care because it's always kind of sounds the same in here. With that being said, if it was a new tone that came on right now, would you move?
Yes.
Probably not. Half of you would be like, what the hell? And the other half would be like, yes, we're done. And kind of pack up.
Like the bells get work to like the morning bells.
Oh, Claire. Yeah. I teach right through Claire, so I really don't notice the difference. You're right. You're right. There you go. That's stimulus discrimination. Claire, making connections. What do you got?
Could a condition
By the way, you have extinction up there now.
could like the condition also be like a word? No. You say?
Be careful about it. Keep it clean. We're going to keep it with bells. We're going to keep it clean with bells. Because we're going to make it as much more complicated tomorrow. We're going to keep it simple, stupid, today. Okay? Then we have something called extinction.
During all 3 lunches.
So ladies and gentlemen, if I taught Toby to drool, I'm coming. If I taught Toby to drool to a bell, and then I took 6 months off, do you think Toby would remember? Probably not. He's not the brightest dog to start with. He only has like 3 commands. He can sit. That's not the only thing he's really good at. Oh, I guess he can shake. Okay. Extinction is after a gap of no use, the dog or the animal forgets the training. Okay? So, extinction is after a long period of time, the dog forgets the training. So, if I train Toby to drool to the sound of a bell, when I ring the bell, what will Toby do? No, because it's not conditioned. If it's extinction, what does he do? Nothing. He just looks at you and he's kind of like, what the hell are you doing? No, that's why we started with extinction. Trying an extinction moment. So, if I go a long period without using, like if I don't say sit to Toby for a long time, what's going to happen to the word sit? Yeah, he's going to forget it and he's going to become a wild man once again. Okay? If I don't use the word shake with Toby, what's going to happen to the word shake? It won't shake anymore. Would that be because McCrae comes home and says sit like a gentleman, and then they shake every time he comes home? It's actually kind of cute. It's really cute. Sits there and shakes like a gentleman. It's cute. Okay? Extinction means it won't respond. And then we have spontaneous recovery. I'm so sorry. Spontaneous recovery. After long periods of no conditioning, the dog may remember. After long periods of no conditioning, the dog may or may not remember. Like for instance, when we first got Toby, I was trying to be like a super dog owner. You've met Ren, right? Like Ren is like a crazy dog owner.
Yeah.
And at the beginning, I was like, you know what? We had Toby before he had Angus, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to be a super dog owner. Well, that got real lazy real quick because like I don't give a shit. What I do care about is that he's not a terror, right? He is not jumping on people and stuff like that. As long as he's like a nice dog, it's fine. If I all of a sudden ask him to roll over, which was a skill I was trying to teach him, which he just is too dumb to figure out, he's sweet though. Okay, if I say roll over, Toby may just like lie on his side, but it could be a miracle if that happens. That's spontaneous recovery. He may remember some of it, like for instance, he may drool a little bit, and that's what I would put in your application. The dogs aren't going to drool completely like they used to, but they may drool a little bit with the sound of a bell. That's spontaneous recovery. So, I know this content is not the most exciting, but tomorrow you have a video from the office to watch about this with Jim and his shenanigans. You'll see. It's a classic.
Oh, spoiler.
They've already seen it. Everyone's seen The Office.
I'm not.
You never know. You never know.
So, tomorrow, now ladies and gentlemen, this is a huge section. This is absolutely 100% on your AP exam. It is a big deal. We'll review it tomorrow. Everyone feels okay about classical? Because tomorrow we're going to make it way more complicated with operant. That's a lot harder. And don't worry, my bells will be back.
I'm gonna bring earplugs.
My ears so much.
It's going to be great. Imagine people